The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Tuesdays here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're doing all right. We have plenty to talk about as we go portaling on a Tuesday. Quarterbacks galore. We will spin the magic quarterback wheel and discuss some options. We'll take some input, too, as always. 489-1240, 489-1240 to get in with Hail Varsity Radio. Toll free where you can hear us across the state, 1-800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com, Elijah at hurrdatsports.com, and can always watch the show and contribute, comment on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Elijah, not you, but Elijah in the stream is first. I like these rotating races for folks to be first in the stream. That sounds bad, but what I mean is you're first on the radio YouTube stream.
Well, yeah, and it's reaching a point where now you got to hop on 15, 20 minutes for the show to be first, and I like the reward if you are first. You get your comment read. We give you the shout out. We give you the shout out, and if you bring a relevant point to us, you'll get the first crack at that. I like that.
And yes, Elijah, does this count as being first? It does. And part of that comment is 100% wishful thinking, but I would absolutely love to see Will Howard come here. Watched him after Adrian transferred down to K-State. Very impressed last season. Not sure how he did this one. Well, they finished 8-3. They were in the Snow Globe game against Iowa State. And unfortunately for K-State fans, Will could not tackle. He was playing offense, not defense, as you had carry the one. 6 plays of over 70 yards given up by that K-State, that Wildcat defense in the snow. It's like you're playing backyard ball. So we'll talk about Will Howard. We'll talk about some other quarterback options. We'll talk about the snubs that happened with the All-Big Ten selections. We'll get there. Mitch Sherman took some inventory of Nebraska's offense. We'll get Mitch's take from The Athletic in about 15 minutes. Mitch will release the Fury. In hour 2, we'll spend time with Matt Schick, his take on Nebraska, and his assessment from a national view. Schick does it all, man. ESPNU, Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Schick and Nick podcast. You know him, you love him. So Matt Schick with us in 1 hour. Little Husker hoops, as I know it's an off week before Creighton gets in, but we'll dive in. Men's and women's hoops with Andy Markowski. Get his take on the Big Red as Creighton looms, and we'll throw some NFL in as well as another week complete in the National Football League. 489-1240. So the talking point is this: quarterback. It is a make or break position. You've seen it in the NFL forever. You've seen it with your college football program. And the dynamic has shifted. Even old St. Nick Saban shifted from a manager to a playmaker. And why he did that? Because he got beat by Johnny Football. He got beat by Cam Newton. No one else could touch Saban because he had guys under center. He had NFL offensive linemen. He had a stable of running backs. And he had a guy named Julio you could throw it up to. Made it look very easy. But everybody needs that dude at quarterback. You need a little Brett Favre, but you need a lot of Andrew Luck, where you've got the brains and the ability married together, where it is not a contest. You're there to go make winning plays, but above all, Elijah, make smart plays. Just take care of the football. So we need to ask and answer this question. Nebraska is a quarterback away from what? Well, you've heard the murmurs. Well, if Nebraska would have had Casey Thompson, you've heard the murmurs if Nebraska would have had a healthy Chubba. And that's not counting the fact you got 5 wins out of Harburg, who did a hell of a job, did what he was asked. I know he didn't always take care of the football, but some of that was just tough. You asked him to come in, not playing college ball before, and he got you to 5, got you to the doorstep, right? And Nebraska needs more help around whoever is at quarterback. You've got the help defensively. You got to be better on special teams, and we'll hear from Matt Rule tomorrow. I can't wait to hear from Coach. He did do his coach's show last night, and kind of the quick synopsis of it is Nebraska did some things well, but they don't need to do anything drastic. And you can read into that how you want, but drastic would be change. Change would be coaching to me, coaching change, position change, or OC change. 5 losses by a field goal and an overtime. And he's right. Rule is absolutely right with this last part of the comment. Just need to get a little bit better. And, good for him amidst all the noise, and we're part of the noise, but good for him doubling down on just go get better. Don't go new. And we're all in this reset mindset. I totally get it. It's easier to go find someone different. It's easier to start over. It's easier to go think the grass is greener. You see it in college ball all the time with the portal. And if you just stick and stay and go get better, hey, you can have a couple of good seasons, 3 really good seasons. You could probably surprise yourself. So I love his stick to it in this. Don't ignore the options and the opportunity of the portal. But let a competition happen and let the best dude win the job at quarterback.
Do you really think, though, that Nebraska just needs to get a little bit better this offseason? That strikes me as ultimate coach speak.
No, it might be.
Look at the schedule next year and tell me that if this team is a little bit better, that's going to cut it next year.
Okay.
It needs to be a lot bit better.
Okay, if you're not punting in at least 2 of the losses, all right, I'm not hammering the punter, but that was part of it, right? When did Nebraska give up a couple of scores? Well, when it was a short field. Rarely did someone line up and drive it down their throat. Okay, maybe they gave up a big play they did to Maryland, right? One drive, that's 7 points that Maryland hit them for a 60-yarder.
You're completely throwing out the Michigan game, which is kind of my argument that Michigan was the only team that was truly worth a damn on your schedule this year.
Sure, okay.
You got 4 teams that are going to be worth a damn.
Yeah, Michigan's going to go do that to about everybody, right? So you need to get a lot better to be Michigan. What I'm talking about is bowl and be in the upper half of the conference. I'm not asking Nebraska to be a playoff contender next year. I'm not asking them to be a Big Ten championship game contender. I'm asking them to be 8 or 9 wins, and they can get there by being just a little bit better situationally on defense, close out better, as good as they were for 58 minutes, be good for 60 when it comes to tackling. When I'm talking about special teams, be better at pinning people inside the 20, so it's not a short field all the time. Be better at kicking, punting, and field goal when you have a chance to take the lead. Be better at coaching situationally, and be better at taking care of the football at quarterback. So what can a quarterback do for you? What does a quarterback do to this football team? Hey, if they got anybody that takes care of the football better than they did last year, they're at 7 wins. I sent you that. Yeah, they're at 7 wins.
Yeah, okay. I can accept that.
And you can fight me on it. That's all good. They're at least bowling.
Yes.
Okay, they're at least bowling. The unlucky meter, I sent you on social media, Elijah. We'll get to that. Who's on the line?
We have John on the line. We'll get to him in just a second. Because
okay.
I have a point here I'd like to
please.
make. And that's with Nebraska's quarterback situation. Going out and getting a transfer portal quarterback, whoever it may be, will not guarantee Nebraska a bowl game next season. Whenever you consider the schedule, but not going out and getting a portal guy will guarantee that you won't make a bowl game with what I see in the quarterback room right now. That's where Nebraska's at right now. So I see Matt Rule's point of getting a little bit better. And if your team gets a little bit better, I don't doubt that you would have gotten to a bowl game this season. But I think whenever you look at the season as a whole with just how terrible they were, you have to get a lot better in the turnover department. A little bit better in the turnover department, and you're still worst in the country. You got to get a lot better in the turnover department.
And that's decision-making, that's quarterback play.
I mean, you could argue that getting a little bit better on defense means that they get off the field on third down, but they have to get a lot better on third down defense. It's not that this team has a whole bunch of areas where they need to get a little better. They have a couple areas where they need to get a lot better.
There's some glaring.
Which would lead to overall the team getting a little bit better, but there are just certain areas that this team must get much, much better. So I understand Matt Rhule, the coach, speak, saying, hey, guys, we're close. We need to get a little bit better. That's true. In the scheme of an entire team, you need to get just a little bit better. But there are areas that need to get much, much, much better if Nebraska wants to compete next year. Look at the quarterback spot with turnovers. Look at third down defense. I look at first down, running the football. Can you go like a Wisconsin of old or an Iowa of old? Guarantee that you can get yourself 3 to 4 yards on first down. Nebraska couldn't do that this year. They need to do that moving forward next season because I don't think Nebraska goes and gets a world beater at the quarterback position. If they do, awesome. It really raises the ceiling on next season. But you need to get a game-managing type quarterback. Maybe Will Howard is that name. And to help a guy like that out, you need to make the most of your opportunities on first and second down running the football. I think you need to get a little bit better running the football as a whole, but you need to get a lot better on first down, guaranteeing positive yardage, guaranteeing that, you know what, we're going to still pick up positive yardage even if the defense knows we're going to run the football. It's a lot of little areas of the game that need to get a lot better, and that's semantics between what me and Matt Rhule are saying, but that's why I'm saying like this team is not super close to 8 wins. This is not
they were super close to 8 with this year's schedule. That is never going to happen again.
Yeah, I agree. You're never going to get this schedule again. And with that in mind, you have a lot of little areas that need to get a lot.
And I think they can get better in a lot of them. And if you get the right guy at quarterback, he can manage, but can he go make a play for you? Chubba, for his final 3 games, went out there and gave you a good shot. He made some plays, man, and he made some plays off script because he was forced to. He was flushed. He made some plays when he didn't have a run game. He was the run game against some better defenses. Emmett had a decent day, I think, against Wisconsin. But you know what Iowa did? They shut down the running back run game. All right? And Nebraska was content to maybe toss it around a little bit because, listen, they had a loaded box. They couldn't really move. And it was really hit or miss on what they were doing on first down. You are absolutely right. Could they find something that was working and stick with it? I don't know that they always stuck with it long enough, or they ejected before it stopped working, if that makes sense, with what the game plan was. So quarterback, what can it do? Nebraska's a quarterback away from bowl eligibility. They're a good quarterback away from that 8 or 9 number. Who's on the line?
John's on the line.
John, thanks for hanging. Sorry about the sermon. Go for it.
No, what I want to clarify something first. I've been watching Nebraska football since I've been, 3, and I'm 78, a lot of years, and I'm not an expert or anything. But what I want to clarify, you deserve getting Best Sportscaster of the Year 2 years ago. What I'm saying today has nothing to do with you and how you look at sports. But I will say I've had 20 years of crap, and I've heard it from radio, television, I've heard it from the newspaper, the internet, and the news media. And our problem goes back to our regents. It goes back to our chancellor, our presidents, and our athletic directors. The state of Nebraska and Nebraska fans have been screwed for 20 years. And I'm at the age where I have a little bit of jack that I may be giving back, but it's not going to go. It's not going to go to the Nebraska football program, I'll tell you that. And I like to hear realistic things like you're talking about. This season, we had a lot of chances it didn't happen to have it. And this season, next year, we're going to have, like you said, a hell of a lot of improvement, and I appreciate that. But the whole support that I know from my old friends, and there's less and less of us there, we stuck with Nebraska. I remember my dad back in the 50s saying, well, maybe next year. We stuck by it all this time. But I don't think the fans we have now have the disposition to be as loyal as some of us folks that are my age right now. That's my only thing. It just gets disgusting to hear all this stuff.
John, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate you listening, man. Thanks for the kind words. No, John is there at a certain age. There's a certain appetite, and you are full. You are ready for success now, and you want it to happen yesterday because you've been waiting. And John isn't wrong with you go back to the root of the problem. Let's squeeze in one more phone call, but we're here and now with Matt Rule, with Trev Alberts. There's a vision. They're moving forward. We're talking about fixing for 2024. Who's with us?
Yeah, Greg in Michigan up against the shot clock.
Greg again in Michigan. Greg, go for it. Real quick, bud. Thanks for calling.
Hey, I'm just having a hard time moving past this, not making a bowl. Northwestern made a bowl with a worse picture. I think it boils down to coaching. They had turnover problems all the way from spring to fall camp and the whole season. That's coaching. It's not talent. We have the talent to win most of those games. Falls on coaching. They got to get better. I'm out.
I appreciate you, Greg. Thanks. No, I think Rule said they got to coach better. I mean, I'm pretty sure he has said that at some point. We got to teach it better, got to coach it better. So I think the accountability is there with the head man. And that's one thing I would put money down, is that he's going to make sure it gets fixed.
But look at the Jets. The Jets have talent all over the field because Aaron Rodgers brought in talent. Do you blame Robert Saleh for Zach Wilson being a terrible quarterback?
Yeah, that was before Saleh got there. Mitch Sherman, he'll unleash the fury next.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity continues. We'll get to your StreamYard comments, more your phone calls. 489-1240. Let's head to the line, though, and spend time with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. At Mitch Sherman on Twitter's where you find him. You read him with The Athletic. And, Mitch, you're on your roof. Are you okay, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. If anybody knows where I live, you can drive by and see me on the top of my roof right now. You know, we had like a quiet. Well, you never want to say quiet. It's going to be quiet because you don't know. But what seemed to be a peaceful couple of hours this afternoon, with no craziness in the transfer portal or the coaching carousel, and the weather is not brutally cold. So I'm taking advantage of this little break before the sunset to get some lights hung from my roof. And man, I almost got down. I was almost done. I've got like the last extension cord to plug in, and then it will light up like Clark Griswold does it, and we'll be good to go. But as for now, you got me on my roof.
So, do you have any neighbors with you in your neighborhood on their roof that says "Come to Lincoln, Will Howard"? I mean, is there anyone who did cursive on top of their roof?
Like a sign?
Yeah, a sign.
In case
land here.
In case he's flying overhead, the Kansas State graduate transfer. No, I don't know if the outcry for Will Howard is that strong. I think everybody's just kind of assessing what's going on in the portal right now and trying to determine, who Nebraska might be interested in. I can't wait to get the opportunity tomorrow, now that the season's over, to hear how Matt Rule answers the question about a portal quarterback and if he's going to open the door 100% wide and say, come on in, we recognize that we need help. If he's going to play it close to the vest and do as we've heard pretty much so far and say, hey, we're close. We just need everybody who's on this team to get a little bit better, and this can go from a 5-win team to a 10-win team. I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment. Or he may say no, we're not shopping in the portal. I think that's the least likely answer. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious to see which way he plays it when he has some time to talk tomorrow afternoon or late morning.
Mitch Sherman's with us on his roof. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
And Mitch, we do have the relevant emergency personnel on speed dial. Should we hear anything in the background?
No, let's not even think that. Well, Mitch, are you harnessed in?
No, I'm in a safe spot right now. I'm not hanging over any edges. I mean, I'm sitting on I'm good. I'm good right now. Now, 10 minutes from now when I'm trying to climb down the ladder, that's always a little dicey, but I think I'll be okay.
Mitch, I've never put lights up in my life, and I've had 3 homes.
Yeah, I get roped into this every year. I think my wife is it's a win-win for her. Like that's too more of
Hold on.
She's either gonna get lights or
life.
She's gonna get the life insurance. So I'm joking.
Oh, man.
Well, my grandpa actually did fall off a roof back in his day. It was a long, hard recovery, but the lesson that I always learned from him...
You're serious?
Oh, I'm 100% serious. Yeah, it was really bad. This was before I was born.
Okay.
But the lesson, he was holding a piece of plywood, and you know how there's a really broad side? It was a windy day, and it caught a lot of wind. So the lesson I learned from him, and Mitch, maybe this is a lesson that's relevant to you, if you have something that can catch a lot of wind that is in your hands, make sure it is not broadside to the wind because it will pull you off the roof, just to let you know.
Yeah, it's surprisingly calm up here. The wind has died down. It's really a nice night. I've done this in much colder weather, and I thought that when I came up here today that it was going to be bad. Just looking at the weather data, saw some gusts up to 20 miles an hour. I was really on the fence about whether I wanted to do this today, but looking at the rest of the week, it didn't look any better. And you get into December, and then it's just unacceptable. You've missed the window. So I've as long as the lights come on when I hit the power, I've accomplished a great deal today.
I hope those lights work. Mitch, we were talking here about Nebraska and the quarterback situation. So let's just put it to you. A quarterback does what for this football team? Nebraska's a quarterback away from what? And I said best case 8 or 9 wins next year for sure. 8 this year if you got somebody that takes care of the football.
Yeah, if you want to talk about this year, I think that's easier to assess because you've seen all the teams that Nebraska played, and you've seen what the difference is when you don't have good quarterback play. And there was a stretch there, I'd say, in late September, early October, where Heinrich Harburg was very serviceable and giving Nebraska what it needed to win games. But then the turnover bug creeps back in. And for the majority of the season, it was way, way below average. I think if Nebraska had an average quarterback, or just average quarterback play is a better way to put it, through 12 games this year, based on the schedule that it played, I mean, I would say that the ceiling is 10-2. I don't want to say 11-1 because that's really just everything going your way. And Colorado, at the end of the day, was a little bit out of hand with where the score ended up, and the Buffs were playing very well right then. So 10-2, that's Iowa, and I think Nebraska, with a different formula, was a quarterback, a good to average, above average quarterback away from being every bit as good as Iowa or better. Next year, you have to assess the schedule, and it looks really tough toward the end of the year. I can't tell you today how good UCLA is going to be, how good USC is going to be. I know there were teams that would have beaten Nebraska this year just because of the offense that they possess. But Nebraska with, let's say, a top 40 quarterback next year, I think against a tougher schedule can be right there in that conversation again. Maybe not for 10 wins, but for 7 to 8, and maybe you push it a little higher if you get some breaks.
It's Mitch Sherman with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Mitch, a talking point out there this week is how attractive of a transfer portal destination for a quarterback is Nebraska. You have Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, as well as CBS Sports chiming in saying, no way in hell would I play for Satterfield. He's had a bit of an anti-Satterfield agenda dating back to Satterfield's days at South Carolina, but you look at the numbers and he kind of has a point. So I want to put the question to you. It's something our stream listeners have been discussing in the chat here in this show. How attractive of a portal destination is Nebraska currently?
Well, a couple things. One, you look at the opportunity to be on a big stage if you're a quarterback, and I think a quarterback who's competitive and believes in himself is going to look at the Nebraska schedule and say, yeah, I want to go play at Ohio State. I want to go play at USC. I want to see Iowa, Wisconsin, UCLA on the schedule. It's tough at the end of the year. I get it, but it's also attractive for the guy with the right mindset. And you want that guy who has that kind of a mindset. You want somebody who wants to attack and doesn't think about what the negative ramifications are for the position. At the same time, I do think you have to take into account as a quarterback who has options, and anybody that Nebraska covets is going to have options, what's happened with the quarterback spot, not just this year at Nebraska, but in recent years, and how many injuries the quarterbacks have gone through. And I think the bowl drought is absolutely something that comes into play. If you're a quarterback and let's say you're looking for a sixth year or you're a fifth year guy next season, you want to go to a place where you feel good about their ability to win. And it's tough for Nebraska to sell that, I think, just based on the history. So that's where Matt Rule has to come in and do a great job selling the program. And I think he can do that. I think he's positioned to do that. I think he knows what to say and how to sell it. I mean, we hear it every week when Matt Rule talks, the kind of the sunny side of what's been going on. And I think he believes it. I think his players believe it, and they'll help him sell it too. And then the other factor you have to consider is NIL. And Nebraska seemingly should be in a good position to entice a quarterback through NIL opportunities that are well above average and on par with a top 20 to 25 paying program. So that's also a factor.
Mitch Sherman with The Athletic joining us, Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch on his roof, putting up Christmas lights, keeping an ear to the portal. So you did your inventory with the Nebraska offense without giving too much away. Do you like what Matt Rule potentially has coming back? We'll know officially tomorrow, or at least have a better idea.
Yeah, the story's published today, so I'll be happy to give everything away and encourage people to go read it. But I took a look at everyone who's eligible to come back. I'm putting them on the list of players who at this point are back, and then that list is going to evolve a lot through the off season. So this is kind of a starting point, and I want this list to be a reference to be able to look back on in March before spring practice starts. And then again I just got a honk from somebody who seemed concerned about me.
No, it's somebody in the neighborhood that's listening to us and was like, "Oh, I know where Mitch lives."
It might be somebody may have driven off the road knowing where I live, and we've been on the phone now for 15 minutes, so that's very possible. And then come back to that in July and look again at where that list is at. So I have players on that list on the offensive side, like Ethan Piper, like Jeff Sims, who I have no expectation will be on the roster. But right now, or as of last Friday, nobody had left the program yet. We haven't started to hear of announcements from Nebraska players. I think those are coming, and maybe as soon as the next 24 hours. And certainly when the transfer portal opens for business for players at a program that has not undergone a coaching change on Monday, you're going to hear news. Nebraska is going to have to lose players to the portal because they're way over the limit right now as far as where they need to be on scholarships for next August. And they still have pieces, of course, that they want to add, both through the portal and some final recruits to gather for the 2024 class. And that's fine. You want to be over the limit now. So the problem for Nebraska is not in any way that it has too much talent on the roster. There are many spots when you look over that roster where it's not going to be difficult for Nebraska to find room to trim, and that stuff will work itself out over the next several months. But this is a starting point that I put out there today. Offense is on the site today, and I'll have defense and special teams at the end of the week.
Mitch Sherman with The Athletic. Look for those as Mitch will put some final touches, Griswold-styled, on the Sherman household for this holiday season. Mitch, be safe. Thanks for taking the call on your roof and talking some Big Red Ball.
Yeah, assuming all goes well, I'll send you a picture tonight. If you don't get a picture from me, that means something went very badly on my trip down the ladder or the lights didn't come on. Okay,
we will want that picture soon. Mitch, you take care. Thanks again.
Thanks.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
That was good stuff from Mitch Sherman. Check the podcast out, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. with Mitch Sherman, or you can just, always check out the Hail Varsity YouTube channel for the streamed version. Now, we did not have live footage of Mitch on his roof putting lights up, but that was glorious for him to do the play-by-play, then take time out, and it sucks outside. I'm not going to lie. It's cold. He's tougher than I am. And just making sure I got that in there, Todd, before you send an email. Chris at HailVarsity.com. But no, Mitch did two things at once there. Was finishing the lights. Presumably he's got the staple gun like Clark, and was putting the lights up. So the finest house in the Gretna region, that's probably Mitch Sherman. Mitch Sherman's, the Sherman household that's all lit up, Elijah. Pretty cool to do quarterback portal discussions while one's making sure all the lights work. And he's doing it for me. He's probably doing it for you. Or did you put lights up?
Oh,
yeah.
I'm putting lights up.
What is that?
I haven't even put my tree up yet.
Yeah, okay. Tree's up, but Mama did that. Reminder from a personal injury standpoint about your friends at Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on Dyer Law, the team, to provide you with that helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Call Dyer Law and the team today at 402-393-7529 or visit Dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. That's Dyer.law, Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. 489-1240, the number to get in. We got open phones here till 5 or a little after. Matt Schick coming up here in hour 2.
I'm going to try to find an analogy between quarterbacks and Christmas lights, but I would just like to add, the reason I don't have Christmas
Sometimes
lights
the
up,
ones you have in the basement don't work.
No, it's not that. I have Christmas lights in the basement. I'm not a Grinch for not putting them up. There's just an old saying, happy wife, happy life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a wife to tell me to put Christmas lights on the house. Therefore, I will not be getting on the roof in December, in the cold, in the wind, endangering my life and my well-being to put up some lights. If I had a wife to tell me to do that, I'm sure I would do it because, happy wife, happy life. As I am unmarried, as I don't have a wife to tell me to put Christmas lights on, I will refuse to do so until it becomes necessary. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable.
Well, she can tell me to put up lights all she wants, and
happy wife, happy life.
I have a response. And she's never happy. So there you go. I'm partly responsible for that. Jim checks in when it comes to Nebraska. Nebraska also less attractive. That we're getting national attention for our horrible offense this year. The CBS commentator said, no way in hell I should sign up to play quarterback for Satterfield. You touched on that during the interview with Mitch. I mean, there is some perception you got to fight. Now, the thing that Nebraska, specifically with Matt Rule, that they've been good at, Matt Rule's been great at in his career at every stop, has been getting buy-in. And he gets buy-in because he spends time with guys. Guys want to not only believe what he's telling them, he shows progress. They get better, right, if you stick around. But they also want to play for him and perform for him. There is that connection. This guy does give a crap about me, so let's give it our all for him. I mean, that used to not necessarily be a question mark, because I'm going to put on my old man pants here, but it is now. And Rule gets today's athlete. He's very in tune. And that's a thing that can offset. If you've got objections, he'll hear them, and then he'll have a rebuttal. And ultimately, he ain't going to force you. You don't want to be here, fine. And he's not going to be angry about it. He wants guys that want to be here. Guys that are here and some are staying. We'll have some finalization. But Elijah, what'd you think about the all Big Ten snubs? Or am I going too far? I mean, Reimer, third team, fine. Reimer's a good ball player. I could have found my way to talk about the Polar Bear or Robinson, as impactful as they were in about every game they played, not named Michigan. They were pretty dominant. I mean, they had moments of dominance. They just didn't win enough. I mean, the record kept them out of that third team or even second team. Listen, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, they're going to have dudes. But and Mitch had this tweet earlier. Are there 14 better defensive tackles than Polar Bear and Ty Robinson in the Big Ten? I don't know.
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either.
But two things to note here with these end-of-season awards, these teams and whatnot. First off, take the media, cast that to the side. The media, and I say this being somebody who is in the media. We, the media, for the most part, have no idea what the hell we're talking about. That's a broad generalization, so let me step that back just a little bit and just say, maybe a better way to put it, the coaches know a hell of a lot more of what's going on within the conference than the media. That being said, most media members covering one specific team, you don't have time to watch every single game from every single team in the Big Ten every single Saturday. Yeah, you're going to catch some Nebraska games. You're going to catch some Illinois games, some Northwestern games, some Maryland games. You don't get, for the most part, and there are some exceptional media members out there, I am sure, that catch every single game, that put in their 40 hours every single weekend and make sure that they catch every single play of every single game. Still, what are you going to look at whenever it comes down to at the end of the season? You're going to look at stats, and stats don't tell the whole story. And even coaches. Yeah, coaches have their game planning. They have their scouting. They still don't have a great idea. I mean, Husker fans have a better idea of what Nebraska players put on the field this year than most members of the media, most members of the Big Ten. I'm not saying Husker fans have a better idea of who should be on these all Big Ten teams, but...
Your eyes don't lie.
Yeah, your eyes don't lie. And media members, coaches alike, they're looking at stats for these end-of-season awards. Yeah, they're looking at their eye test, but coaches aren't going to remember every single player they played against this season. They're going to, oh yeah, number 90 from Nebraska.
They'll remember the guys at Michigan on the interior. They'll remember guys at Ohio State in that front seven. They'll remember Minnesota's safety that picked off everybody in some of their marquee wins or tight ball games, and the Gophers only had 5 of them, but they returning all Big Ten safety was impressive. But guys,
again,
no, I know, I should know it. But
you should know it, but he slipped your name in that moment because we're members of the media. Yeah. And at the end of the day,
I just know I'm not throwing at him.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of the point I'm making
towards the end of the half, and I'm not throwing at him towards the end of the game.
It's kind of the point I'm making here, though, with these all Big Ten media lists and all these Big Ten coaches lists. You know what? At the end of the day, they're a bit of a crapshoot, and people are going to look at the stats. They're going to forget some games from their eye test. They're not going to have notes on every single play from every single game. It's a bit of a popularity contest. You look at the stats, you look at the popularity, what names do you know? That's who I'm going to vote for. The media list, hey, it's a great reason for Nebraska to be able to pull the disrespect card this offseason. Hey, Nash, hey, Ty, they didn't think you're good enough to be an all Big Ten team. Show them why this offseason, show them why next season.
I thought Newton for Illinois was big time. I thought Cooper DeJean's a game changer. Those are 2 guys I'd circle. I thought Gallagher's been good for a long time at Northwestern. No worry there. And to be honest with you, Newbin is who I was thinking about. His brother played running back. Newbin at safety was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, you got screwed if you're Polar Bear and Ty Robinson. But guess what? You can come back and remember that. We'll wind down hour 1 next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Matt Schick is 10 minutes away. Andy Markowski to talk some hoops, more football thoughts. We'll get to some NFL. 489-1240. You want to sneak in before the hour is done. And we spend time with Mr. Schick. So first and foremost, Tony White, what is the Tony White update? We need a Tony White sounder. So Syracuse, right, familiarity with Cuse, an ACC program. They are looking at Fran Brown. Of course, Fran connected with Matt Rule, and I think Fran's a guy that probably helped send some Georgia Bulldogs Nebraska's way, the secondary coach at Georgia. Fran is in the running for that Syracuse job that is, you can do a lot worse than Fran Brown. I know he's been a position coach and kind of the co-coordinator there at Georgia, at least with the secondary. He's somebody I'd look at real hard. Is he better than Tony White? Don't know that. But if you're a Nebraska fan, You're hoping that some of these openings that may be intriguing get filled, so Tony can stick and stay for one more year. That is, if you're a Nebraska fan.
And I think the real upside to Fran Brown at Syracuse is his acumen as a recruiter.
Yes.
That's big at Syracuse.
Syracuse has always somehow, some way brought dudes up to upstate New York. San Diego State, they are targeting and looking at Sean Lewis. Fat man in a little coat, Brady Hoke, was a defensive-minded guy, so you hire defense 1 year, you blow out defense, you go offense. Sean Lewis could do some nice things. Yes, he was part of Colorado's staff and then demoted. Speaking of, you have Deion Sanders Jr. and Danny Cannell continuing their food. 'Tis the season. So back on the 17th, I believe that was that after the... No, that was the Colorado State overtime
right
affair.
After Colorado State, yeah. So you had Deion Sanders Jr., and I quote on Twitter to Danny Cannell, "You are a pure hoe." I have to remember stuff. What was the original tweet?
I don't know. It was deleted. But anywho, Danny Cannell responded.
It was a poll asking, should you storm the field after a win in overtime as a 24-point favorite?
That's right. Yes, there we go. And Deion Jr. responded with how he responded. And now, since it is getting close to the holiday season, another gift from Danny Cannell. Hey, Junior, congrats on four wins in year one. Some advice in year two. Stop writing checks your little bros can't cash. Clean up your language. I'm sure Daddy doesn't approve. And when you lose, say little. When you win, say less. Hashtag DK receipts.
That's
so
beautiful.
Danny Cannell keeping receipts. Yes. That's
Danny Cannell, 2-0 on this one, I think.
Yeah. Well, he loves to troll. And there he is. I don't know if he's going to win this battle or war, but he's doing well so far. And for Deion Jr. to go gardening tool on him,
well, it was
is hilarious.
He may have lost the first skirmish, but he
doubled his efforts.
It was a retreat back into the main lines of his forces, which Deion Sanders Jr. walked directly into.
He did.
It was a trap.
It was an absolute trap. Cue Star Wars. Hour 2, Matt Schick coming up. Andy Markowski, room for you. More of your comments in the stream. Hail Varsity Radio continues.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Welcome in with the Schick and Nick podcast, ESPN Radio, ESPNU, Sirius XM, and, All-Star Youth Baseball coach Matt Schick with us at ESPN_Schick. Am I right there, All-Star Baseball coach? Can we go ahead and give you that?
Yeah, that's fine. My buddy Nick Law has referred to me as the Joe Girardi of rec baseball. So it's a lot there. I mean, look, when you sign up your kids for these things, you have dreams of winning a $2 trophy, which you can put on your kid's mantle. And, he owes me a lot because we've got a bunch of them right here. So Rec Hall of Famer, you bet.
I love that. That is so good. If you don't win the trophy, just buy one and put it up anyway, right? I mean,
that's right. I mean, when he's older, he's not going to remember if we won or lost. Like, oh, we must have won something. That's right. You have a $2 trophy to remember it by.
Well, no trophy for Nebraska this season. 5-7. What a topsy-turvy Big Ten West. I'm sure that was glorious all season long to do highlights with the Big Ten West ball games. In all seriousness, though, Matt, what do you think of Coach Rule's year one? We've played a lot of tug of war with the good, the bad, the ugly, and we think, it could have been better, but all in all, 5 wins I guess you'll take and you'll hope to build on. What do you look at? What are you impressed with, and what are you left wanting?
Well, I mean, you win 5 of 6 games, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And then in the context of the season, you look back and say, what a wasted opportunity to get to the postseason. The bar's been set pretty low here, and he couldn't reach it. But at the same time, there was enough there to let you know that he's got this thing on the right path. At least that's, from my judgment. You look at some of the luck rankings and the fact that Nebraska underachieved based on its opportunities. I don't know if that's a reflection of him or a reflection of just the state of the program and where they're at. But, the fact is you had every opportunity to get to a bowl. You didn't. Would that really change a whole lot? I don't know. I mean, I've said, once the advent of the 12-team playoff comes out, making to a bowl isn't going to be good enough anyway. But that's the next step for this program, and they've got to get there. And this Big Ten will not be any easier than it was this year, and I think that's where the frustration comes in. But I think you'll be able to tell, how many kids hit the portal, how many of these young talented players decide to go elsewhere. And I think he's got enough decent talent, but they're not mind-blowing talent. It's a developmental program. If these kids are going to leave, you're going to go develop somewhere else. You're not going to star somewhere else. So I think you'll be able to tell the kind of program he has with how active the portal is in terms of departures. And I think Nebraska will be okay.
Matt, how would you sum up the 2023 season in a word or a phrase? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Tantalizing, maybe teasing. Those are kind of the words of, like, hey, you're kind of right there. You're enticed. It left you wanting more, like most seasons. So those would be a couple there. I mean, any Nebraska fan is kind of used to this by now, but I think if this happens in year 3 or 4, you start to panic. Year 1, you're right on the cusp. I can't remember a time that they were playing for a bowl as early as they were. Mm-hmm. So there's progress there, if you'd like. I mean, the calendar had barely turned to November, and they were playing for a bowl game. So there's some progress.
Matt, let's look at some situations going on. Not only is it portal bonanza for a lot of experienced quarterbacks, Matt Schick gets a phone call from Matt Rule. What is the advice of one Matt Schick with Nebraska's quarterback room?
Oh, I'd say we need to, Coach Rule, you need to be very active in the portal, at least in terms of looking. If you believe you have the answer at quarterback, then why wasn't he playing sooner? Mm-hmm. So you almost have to go against your judgment to continue with Chubba Purdy, which could be the case. I mean, that he looked fine. He looked like he has ability. There's a reason, FSU was in on him, and Louisville. Like there were teams that wanted him. Some got him, and Nebraska eventually did. But how good is he? It's always hard to tell how good a player is when you're not throwing to top tier talent, when you have backup running backs behind you, when you have an offensive line that is still a work in progress. It's just so hard to get a gauge on how good players are until they're surrounded by really good players, i.e. Joe Burrow. So hard to do, but I would say do your due diligence. The portal is going to be as active as ever, and see if there's someone who wants to come on board. The more competition, the better, but you can't screw it up. Don't just take a guy to take a guy. Don't trust Jeff Collins anymore. Trust your own judgment. Figure it out.
Let's go from quarterback to offensive coordinator. You've covered college football on a national level, and there's a lot of Cosgrove treatment 2.0 towards Satterfield. And, what's the word around the campfire from people you know and trust in the world of college football on Satterfield? Is he a cook trying to make ramen right now because of all the injuries, or is there something there historically, turnover-wise, with his offenses? There is data that says he's a high turnover offense. So, what do you believe?
Well, I believe that when he was hired and Jeff Sims was a part of that addition, when Rule gets Satterfield and then they both collectively get Sims, there was a thought from those who know much more than I, that of befuddlement, of confusing, of what what exactly are they trying to do here? And that pretty much played itself out with the way that the season went. Again, it's Jeff Sims was a turnover machine before he got to Nebraska, so I don't know if that's a Satterfield issue. The quarterback carousel with the injuries. Again, there are too many moving parts and too many variables, I think, to make too many judgments on Satterfield at this point. Here's all I know. The team played hard. The team wanted to win. The team looked disciplined. They just need more talent, and they need more development, and that's what you get at a developmental program.
Tell me, Schick, in your opinion, with what you saw this year, is this offense a quarterback away? That seems to be priority number one in the transfer portal, but is it as simple as that in your mind?
I think it's a quarterback away from a bowl game. I think every program's a quarterback away from a bowl game, truly. There are some really good players that can turn your program around. But again, with the injuries and such, I don't know how many games Peyton Manning would have won with Nebraska. My guess is at least 6, but maybe not much more than that. So, look against Michigan State and Caden Hauser. Maryland, Talia Tagovailoa is a really good quarterback, and he didn't do well against Nebraska. Couldn't put up many points. Wisconsin went in the portal to get Tanner Mordecai. Hasn't really panned out. And we all know the Iowa issues that they've had. So, a lot of programs are getting to, some of these middling programs are getting to bowl games in spite of their quarterback, not because of it. And so if you can get a because of quarterback instead of an in spite of, then, that's worth at least a couple of wins.
Matt Schick is with us, Sirius XM, and, of course, ESPN Radio, ESPN.
And to add to that, that the better answer is, a quarterback away from what? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, what is Nebraska trying to do? Is it a quarterback away from a bowl game? Sure, you went 5-7. Make one fewer mistake against Iowa and you're there. Is it a quarterback away from, competing for a Big Ten championship? Absolutely not. This is a roster that needs. It's not a microwavable roster. It's an oven-baked roster. It needs time.
Colorado. You've got a couple of coaches that are gone. I know Warren Sapp's moved to Boulder. Prime had a great start, not a good finish. How does Buff fan or Buff alum Schick feel about this season?
Did they play any more games after September? I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. You guys, your guess is as good as mine. I didn't hear anything. As far as I know, they're still sitting pretty in the top 25 and undefeated and beat Colorado State, and life is good. So, next question. No, it's the verdict is certainly still out. I don't know how this is going to go. I said when we talked last summer, we talked about how this was going to go. I said it was either going to be spectacularly great or spectacularly bad. It's going to blow up awesomely or terrifically awful. And we might get both. I don't know. The first month was great. Now, this team did improve. This team was getting blown out in games last year. You look at the scores, they're getting better. The problem is you cannot, I said this last year, you cannot build a program with transfer mercenaries and hope for sustained success. Look what happened with Mel Tucker in his second year after COVID. They win 11 games. Then took a step back, and this year wasn't going to be good whether he was the coach or not. So you've got to be able to build from within and know who you are. And for Colorado, he said I'm not hard to find, but you got to go find them. That's really what recruiting is all about, and I hope he does as a Colorado guy. I hope he can bring in guys, but they also want to play for winners, and it is hard to get recruits to stay on board when you haven't won a game in 2 months. And that's kind of where Colorado's at.
Well, the news of the day, Matt, Sean Lewis expected to take the head coaching job at San Diego State, important for both Colorado fans and Husker fans because Tony White was considered a candidate there. But, Matt, before we get you out of here, I want to flip gears here, talk conference championship weekend, some playoff implications at stake. I want to get your thoughts on the weekend as a whole. What games will you be watching? Do you have any teams on upset alert? What are your thoughts on conference championship weekend?
Well, I'm a little surprised that the point spread for Oregon-Washington is as high as it is. I don't know if some people are curious if Michael Penix Jr. is not 100% healthy, and that might be a part of it. I think Oregon is the better team. I don't know how much craziness we're going to get this weekend. I would say that it all comes down to Georgia, Alabama. If Georgia beats Alabama, this stuff is pretty clean. If Alabama upsets Georgia, then we're pining for a 12-team playoff, which is happening next year anyway. But, I'm going to be at the ACC championship game. I've got the Dr. Pepper scholarship tuition giveaway at halftime of that. So I'll be sending in your puns and your plays on words that I can use for that as soon as possible. But I think Florida State, Louisville, if Louisville upsets them, then that certainly opens the door for a Texas and a Big 12 championship, a Big 12 champion to get in. I do think it's going to be Texas, Oregon, Georgia, and Michigan. I think those are going to be the four. And frankly, I think if that is the case, I think 3 of the 4 can win it. I think Oregon is really good. I don't think Texas is there yet, but I think Oregon is really good. And I'm not sure if I could pick any team right now in the playoff, they might be the one I'd least want to play just because of how they're playing right now. But I hope for chaos, but also chaos means Alabama beating Georgia, and I'm not sure if people want to see Alabama in the playoff. Although it would be interesting to watch Georgia fans' reaction for them being left out, because I do think that would happen if Alabama beat Georgia.
Well, Matt, with you being at the ACC title game, I want to get your take. Is Florida State a playoff team without Jordan Travis on the field?
Oh, I don't know if they're a playoff-worthy team, but they're getting in if they win the game. I'll put it that way. Like, at some point, you can't just assume anything. What I love about the committee is they say, we don't project. We don't make any projections. Well, that's exactly what you'd be doing if you said Florida State wasn't in the playoff despite being undefeated. That would be a pure projection unless they turn it over 7 times and still find a way to beat Louisville. It's the eye test. They might not pass it the last couple of games, but it's always been a mosaic of best versus most deserving. So it would be hard for me in that committee room to hold it against an undefeated Power 5 champ. But they would get in, and they would probably lose by 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first game if they're the 4 seed and take on Georgia or even Michigan. And that's just the way it's going to be. But injuries happen, but I couldn't hold it against the team.
Last thought, Matt Schick with us. Matt, good to spend time with you. Thanks again. How does Ohio State get in? Can they?
Yeah, they can. They're going to need some help. They're big Oklahoma State fans, and they're big Louisville fans. I think if those 2 things happen and Washington wins, Michigan wins, Georgia wins, then they're in. The problem is if Oregon beats Washington, I think I'd put Washington in over Ohio State. So they need Washington to win. But then they need Oklahoma State, which is a 2-touchdown underdog, and Alabama, which is a touchdown. They need Oklahoma State to win, and they need Louisville, which is about a 3-point underdog in order to get in. But I wouldn't put dirt on them yet. Crazier things have happened, and a couple crazy things happened this weekend, and they could find their way in. I still think they're one of the top 5 teams in college football, and frankly, if they get a little better protection on that last drive and Kyle McCord completes a few more passes, we're having a very different conversation about Ohio State, and they're the ones favored by 3 touchdowns against Iowa. But it's funny listening to the SEC fans and those who cover them say, "Oh, it would be just terrible for Georgia to be left out if they lost." Well, it would be even worse if Alabama and Georgia actually played each other in the regular season, because that's what happens with Michigan and Ohio State. Mm-hmm. One of them is excluded. So the fact is, if Alabama and Georgia played in the regular season, they might not play as often as they do in the postseason and the SEC championship. They played 3 times in the last 15 years in the regular season. So I know that's going to change next year, but such is life in the Big Ten when you've got Ohio State and Michigan playing each other every year. And one wins, one loses, and even though it's a one-possession game, people outside the Big Ten don't care. They're kicking dirt on Ohio State. It is what it is.
Matt, we'll talk again soon. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Anytime, fellas. Have a great week, and go Buffs.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Let's talk some Husker hoops. We welcome in the pride of Ord, Andy Markowski, with us at Markowski_Andy, where you follow him on Twitter. Andy, how was the holiday? Did you have a good time with family? Thanks for joining us.
No, happy to be here. Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of unconventional Thanksgiving. We actually traveled down to St. Pete. The women's Husker team was down there for a couple games. So we did Thanksgiving from the beach, but the weather in Florida wasn't balmy, but certainly better than what the weather here Friday and Saturday was.
So any different sides with Turkey Day on the beach? Did you go a little seafood for everybody?
Yeah, there was certainly a unique menu compared to what I normally would have. But we did do some seafood, try to make it part of that experience, but missed the turkey, the ham, and the traditional Thanksgiving meal that we normally have if we would have stayed back here or visited the parents up in Oregon.
Well, Andy, here's the real question for you. Is your tan now better than Schmidt's? That'd be an accomplishment.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't peel back all the layers, so I did not get a lot of sun. I stayed relatively comfortable, and so yeah, he's probably got a better tan than me. I hate to admit it.
Well, I don't fade real easy, and that's thank you, Mom and Dad. So there we go. Tan fat is happy fat, Andy. So that's how I'm running with it. But let's stay with basketball. We'll talk women's hoops a little bit further in a moment. But Big Red off to that 7-0 start, Andy, and your takeaway here, we're early, but want to get an early thought on Nebraska Creighton. But what have you liked so far, aside from the record, with this year's team, with what Fred and company got going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like. I love their versatility. I think positionally they're long, right? You can go Williams at the 3 and play Alec and Mast, which, I think is the best front line that certainly Fred has had. It probably goes back to Miles' NCAA tournament team with just length and size on that front line. Their ability to share the basketball, I thought maybe they would struggle assist turnovers without a true point guard. They've done a really good job of just kind of playing together and staying attached and sharing the basketball, and that's kept their turnovers down. I don't think they've shot it as well as they can shoot it. I know they're averaging 9 threes a game, which is tops in the league, but I just don't think Tominaga has been as aggressive as what maybe they need him to be. I think Lawrence has been a little bit more passive as a scorer, running the point. So I actually think they can shoot the ball better than what they have, which is a positive because they're averaging 81 points, which is the most in Fred's tenure. So, they've had 6 different leading scorers in 7 games. They were rebounding it pretty well. The last 2 or 3 they have not, so they're going to have to get that shored up, as Fred alluded to, after the game on Sunday. But the competition has just been okay, right? And they're going to find out, if that offense can carry through what is going to be a difficult 4 or 5 game stretch here.
It's Andy Markowski with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska basketball, upcoming matchup with Creighton on Sunday. And Andy, one of the things with this team that surprised me, and I'll lay this out for you right now. I'm a little biased. I'm a Nikola Jokic fan, and I think I see a little bit of Nikola Jokic and Rink Mast. And one of the things that surprised me is I think Rink Mast has maybe been the best weapon for the Huskers so far this year. I know Casey had a perfect game from the field just the other night, but Rink Mast, his all-around presence has been something to behold in double-digit scoring every single game he's played in this year. He gets the rebounds, he gets the assists. What have you seen from him so far for the Huskers this season?
Yeah, I think he's their most complete player. I mean, he's got legitimate Power 5 size, very skilled on the block, right or left shoulder, right or left hand, can step away and shoot. I thought they were going to lose. The value of Walker last year was the ability for him to really pass at the 5 spot. They could, put him kind of in the cylinder and let him hit cutters. And Masters really has that skill. I mean, he's a really terrific passer. He's got good vision. In addition, he's probably obviously a better shooter than Walker, and he's bigger and a better rebounder. So I thought that would be a real, step back. And really, I think it's a positive with this year's group because I think Mast is terrific. And, I think Williams is the second best, most versatile player as the teams get better and the defenses get harder and the scouting is more in depth. I think both of those players are going to be able to find baskets and score just with their skill and their versatility.
Andy, you mentioned versatility and kind of that force Nebraska has. I really like the hustle that Alec has brought. Transfer, of course, a kid that played at North Star. You mentioned Williams, and Rink has been tremendous. Do you worry at all about Keesey forcing it? And I say that respectfully because the way he ended the year, I mean, he kind of emerged last season as a guy coming into this year with coming back for Nebraska to be that go-to guy. Do you think he'll be able to live up to that expectation? I mean, he can't always have a great night, but I think there's help here for him. But when push comes to shove, can he be a big shot maker for Nebraska this season?
Yeah, I mean, he proved that a year ago that he can, be the featured player and carry a team. I think, over the last, 9 games, he was, 20.6 times. I'm not worried about his role. I think probably the international experience with the Japanese national team probably helped him. I mean, that was the role that he had for them, right? Was kind of that come off the bench, take open shots. You're not going to get 20 shots. You're not going to be the featured player. So that probably helped him coming into the season, playing with the group he's now playing with. He doesn't have to do all that. I think he can let shots come to him. I think as scouting is going to try to take Maston Williams away, he's going to benefit by maybe not getting the best perimeter defender all the time like maybe he did late in the year. So I think he'll find big games where he makes 5, 6, 7 threes to help us win. But there's also going to be games where maybe he only takes 5 or 6 shots because we like a few other matchups on the court. So it just goes back to this is by far the deepest team that Fred has had, and I think their comfortability of you mentioned Alec. Alec is just comfortable playing hard and rebounding. He doesn't need to score. This is his 5th year of college. He wants to be a part of a winning team. And you can just see that the group is just very comfortable, playing together and allowing different players to have big games and not forcing it or, you feel like the pressure of getting somebody 15 to 18 shots to keep them happy. This group doesn't seem to have any of that. They're just playing together. They're having fun and certainly, winning takes care of all that, right? It's hard to complain and bitch when you're winning, and this group is off to a good start. And, I think this is going to be a fun team to follow.
Andy, before we specifically look at the Nebraska and Creighton matchup, you alluded to earlier the strength of schedule for Nebraska this year hasn't been among the tops in the country. It's been pretty weak if we're being 100% honest, but it's always better to get learning lessons in a victory than in a loss. Tell me, if you're Fred, what would you be working on this week gearing up for Creighton? I'm kind of alluding to the Creighton matchup just a little bit, but just what have you seen from the first couple of games that you'd be working on here this week before Creighton comes to town?
Well, you're right. I mean, there's teams that have not put the pressure that Creighton's gonna put on you. The conversion defense, being able to get back and locate shooters. Their ability to shoot the basketball at 5 spots a lot of times is going to be hard to guard. I do not think this team is as good as last year's group when they went into Omaha and beat Creighton. You look at Bandamel and some of those perimeter defenders we had a year ago. I think that group was ahead of this group defensively, so that's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to be able to score to keep pace with Creighton. I don't think Creighton is as difficult to guard this year. They lost Niemhart, their point guard, and they put him and Kalkbrenner in a pick and roll a lot last year. I don't think they're as good this year in the pick and roll, and Kalkbrenner's numbers have really shown that. He has not been able to get the amount of shots at the rim. His production is down, and I think that was just because of the lack of what they have for a point. They have a good point guard, and certainly they had some players step up and play new positions. But I don't think Creighton is as difficult to guard, but I don't think Nebraska is good defensively either. So we're going to have to be able to score. We're going to have to make shots. I think masked Kalkbrenner matchup. We're going to have to win that one. And then we need our depth. I mean, I think Creighton plays 7 or 8 kids that are all productive, and Nebraska is going to need that same productivity from their bench, which should be a really fun game to watch.
Andy, is this a launching spot for this Nebraska season if they're able to take down Creighton? I know Creighton's already had their wake-up call against Colorado State, but what would a win at PBA mean over Creighton?
Yeah, I think there's, certainly a rivalry there. This is an important game for the state. I think, a lot of the guys that went in Omaha and won are back, right? So I think they're familiar with the, just the rivalry. I don't think if you lose this game that it means a lot. I mean, my concern is the non-conference schedule. If you lose to Creighton, you probably need to come back and beat K-State. I think that you need a kind of a tournament resume win in the non-conference. I like the schedule that they put together. I think Fred is overscheduled in his time here, and it's taking the energy from the team, it's taking the energy from the fans, so you can finally feel a little buzz. I think they were a little smarter with the schedule. The league doesn't appear to be as deep or good. They're not, the wins in the non-conference have not come for the Big Ten. So, you're probably looking at a 6-bid league. So, beating Creighton, certainly moves you up in that upper half. There just hasn't been a lot of big non-conference wins for the Big Ten team. So, beating Creighton, I think puts Nebraska in that upper, 3 or 4 teams in terms of recognition in the non-conference with the Big Ten. So, I do think it can be a spark in the right direction, but if they happen to lose that, they still have a Minnesota and Michigan State the next week and to start the conference, and you got K-State before Christmas, and then a really tough 20-game league schedule. So there's still a lot of basketball left if we happen to lose at home. But I think it's a game that they feel like they can win, and being at home is a game that they should win.
A few more minutes, Andy Markowski on the other side. Hail Varsity continues. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. We'll get more into the FCS and Division I quarterback options for the Big Red as well.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Pride of Ord. Andy Markowski with us at Markowski_Andy, where you follow him on Twitter. Andy will wrap with Husker women's basketball and Big Red trying to bounce back. Florida Atlantic around the corner. But overall, as you look at some of the non-conference and the tournament down in Florida, where do you see this squad at as they kind of gear up for some non-con to finish and then back into a really tough Big Ten?
Yeah, it's certainly been a disappointing start to lose to Creighton, at home. Was a tough loss, and then to go down and play a good TCU team, which will be a tournament team, and lose has kind of their backs are against the wall a little bit in the non-con. Obviously, they've got at Kansas yet before Christmas, and that they're an NCAA tournament team, so that becomes a really important game to keep getting some resume building wins. But yeah, it's they've played well at times, but like last season, the consistency still hasn't been there to the level that it needs to beat the best teams on their schedule, and the teams are only going to get better. I mean, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, there's a lot of really good teams in the Big Ten. So, hopefully the few non-con games left will help them get their bench. They do have Potts is a freshman having a really good year for them. They need to find a little more consistency at one of the guard spots. But if they can find that, I think there's a lot of basketball ahead for them, and they can end up having a good year.
Andy, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for a few minutes with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Andy Markowski with us, talking some Husker hoops, men's and women's. We'll check in with Andy down the road for sure. And big one, Sunday at PBA, Creighton, Nebraska. We'll dive back in. Quarterback's been the soup du jour today with the portal, and we'll hear from Matt Rule tomorrow. Good stuff from Mitch Sherman earlier. Matt Schick also with us. So there's 3 reasons why you go into the portal, right? More than 3 possibly, but you get paid, you go to win, or you want a better shot at the NFL?
From a player's perspective,
yes.
2 reasons, yes, okay.
Right? You get paid, you go to win, or maybe there's a better shot at me at the NFL. So right now, there's been no official announcement from Cam Ward, but Cam Ward was on Nebraska's radar a year ago, and Casey Thompson was the guy around that same time. And Cam Ward was a lower division, I think Incarnate Word was where he was at. He went to Washington State, killed it there. They just missed a bowl berth, but not because of him. He's awesome. But 10 different offers out there for about $1 million for his services. Washington State may still be in the Pac-12 by name, but not by social standing anymore. Miami, Ohio State, A&M, Washington, Auburn. Bo Nix, supposed to be the second coming at Auburn, got hurt and then moved on. And look at what he's done at Oregon. Some of the other names, right? You've got Jerry Bohannon. There's a little Rule connection there. A guy that got granted his 7th year, recruited him at Baylor. Rule did. South Florida now. Blake Sheppen is the Baylor quarterback. 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions this year, but the Bears not a great team. Max Johnson, stop me if you've heard his name before, but he's looking at Portland again, ATM and LSU, but in all sorts of arm talent. You have Tyler Shaw out of Texas Tech. That's a connection there. And then, of course, you have the option with Kansas State and Will Howard. Will Rogers also, although with Jeff Lebby going to Mississippi State, I wonder if Will Rogers reassesses. Tyler Van Dyke from Miami.
You're not going to mention Spencer Petras?
I am not going to mention Spencer Petras. I will not mention Spencer Petras. But no, I mean, and I think if you look at Will Howard, we've had some really good comments in the stream as well. And then the Holy Cross player, Sluka from Holy Cross. Red Wine checks in. His wish list is as follows: Will Rogers, Sluka, Shaw, the transfer quarterbacks in that order. And there you go. I think Nebraska can compete, but who's looking at losing a room? I'm interested to see what Ohio State loses. What does Texas lose? Right? Because Florida's going to be wanting a quarterback. Notre Dame's going to want a quarterback. All these programs that are on the doorstep of playoff or better, and this thing expands to 12, they're going to be right there. And NIL, yes, is going to get him in the door, but a chance to win or NFL potential will keep him there. Does USC go portaling, right, with Lincoln Riley's track record? Lane Kiffin is a popular landing spot because it's a fun offense. Saban hasn't gone portaling that often. I mean, he's done pretty well with high school kids, and not all of them stay, but the ones that have gotten better and gone on to NFL opportunities.
We've seen Milroe get better this season alone.
Yeah, exactly. So Saban's about it. You have Daniels, of course, down at LSU that came out the same year as Adrian Martinez, and he left Arizona State. So, no, I think Nebraska has some options, but you have Sheppen and Bohannon are 2 names. I'm intrigued by Sluka. I don't discount a guy because he's been in a lower level. In fact, Sluka, 59 touchdown passes to 15 interceptions in 3 years. I will take that. I will take that decision-making. And you got to feel better about what's around who's ever at quarterback. What you need, though, is that decision maker pulling the trigger. You need that to be quite a bit better for Nebraska next season. That's obvious, but it's not always a promise you will get that in the portal. I mean, Nebraska saw that with Sims last year.
And here's the question, because you mentioned off the bat a guy like Cam Ward. Is he going to come to Nebraska? No.
He passed him up once.
He's got $1 million offers on the table from a boatload of schools that are a hell of a lot more successful than Nebraska, at least at the current moment. Like, it's about Matt Rule finding the guy that you can expect to step in. Like I've mentioned it before, Jeff Sims was a toolsy guy. You saw the tools, you saw the potential, you said we can coach that. Well, turns out you can't. The question to me this offseason is, can Nebraska find a guy that is close to ready-made that is willing to come to Nebraska? It's the two questions, and that's why Matt Rule makes a hell of a lot more money than me. But you have to go out and have the conversations and meet with the guys, and maybe it's chat with them on the phone.
Find the fit, dude.
And NIL is secondary here. NIL is like the cherry on top of your sundae.
You hope it's like last in the priority list of said player.
Mm-hmm.
You hope it's, let's go win, I want to get better, money will take care of itself. That's not always the order.
I mean, but like a team that went 10-2 this year, that's a quarterback away from a college football playoff berth, you can assume that there's going to be more money available for a program like that to go invest into a transfer portal quarterback. When hey, we're just a quarterback away, some booster out there is going to fork up the money and say, you know what, I want to see a college football playoff team. Nebraska's not at that point right now. Can you find the fit from a player to a program to a player? This player fitting in the offense, and you have a fit between head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback. Those are the most important aspects.
It's big time, and it's like the Three Bears. It's just right, the amount of portal you use.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So Brett emails in. He says, put booze in the stands. It will fix quarterback play. Maybe you won't remember interceptions, fumbles.
What you're going for? Is he going for like the NIL aspect of things? Because both could be true.
So
put Cornhead Lager in the stadium.
Yeah,
Cornhead Lager.
That'd be good.
There's your NIL done.
Powered by Cornhead Lager. So Todd checks in. A cook making ramen would mean he can't possibly bleep up. How about a blind person trying to make a gourmet meal?
Well, it's kind of what I talked about a couple weeks ago. With,
the food analogy.
Yeah, using your dollar store ingredients to try to make beef Wellington. It's not going to go well. I also think you want to.
I don't think you can buy beef at the dollar store. I pray you can't.
Yes, you can.
Really?
Yes, you can.
Is that kind of like behind the Hobby Lobby?
You haven't been down on your luck as much as I have, then. But those college years, you never run to the old Dollar Store. I have a Dollar Tree just around the block.
No, I love that Dollar Tree.
They have like the quick steak and stuff. It's not good meat. Don't get me wrong.
No, I just
that's what I'm saying. I mean, don't go expecting a tenderloin.
We would just order pizza. We would chip in, order pizza, and some of the stuff on campus back then was straight up cardboard. You couldn't tell the difference.
But like back to the
it wasn't Lazari's.
Back to the quarterback analogy. I mean, I think a college student's a good example here. You don't want to try to make a beef Wellington with your dollar store ingredients. You don't want to ask your quarterback to do that. But you also don't want to ask your quarterback to be a college student and make ramen and eggs every single game. That's not going to work either. You want it to be a nice, healthy meat in the. You know what? Make me a grilled ham and cheese and tomato soup. It's a step up from ramen and eggs. It's still not difficult. That's what I think Nebraska wants from its quarterback. Yeah, don't burn the toast.
Don't turn the ball over.
Maybe get yourself some fancy cheeses to make it just a little bit more palatable.
Because cheese is cheap.
You get my point, though. like shell out for the extra cheese.
You got to give me some cheddar.
There's a healthy medium here.
You got to go cheddar. You got to go portal, and you got to be right in the portal, just like you got to be right in the JUCO. You got to be right in recruiting, at least 50% in recruiting. That's important. Nathan emails in, hey guys, I'm probably going to regret this, but I'm all in on Will Howard or the kiddo from Baylor. That'll give Nebraska much needed depth and experience in the quarterback room. I think we should look to the portal for skill guys and whatnot. Keep recruiting O-line and D-line because that can be slow burns and create depth. Love the show. Nate, thanks for listening. Appreciate the email. Yeah, I think the Three Bears just right. The bed can't be too soft, too hard. It's got to be just right, and it's got to be that way. I don't worry about the culture part, but you need to be right with who you pick, and it comes down to evaluation. We've said that all year.
And I know radio is about at times hot takes and being the first to be on something. I am holding my horses on being all in on any one of these quarterback portal options just yet. I am completely. I mean, there's still probably another 20 names of guys that are going to enter into the portal as coaches.
Are you holding off because you don't think Nebraska can get them?
Well, look at a guy like Lincoln Kienholz. Do you think he's going to enter his name into the portal before the Big Ten championship
No,
game,
absolutely
before the college
not.
football playoff?
No, he'll be in the portal, and if he goes to the portal, it'll be January.
That's what I'm saying. I am saving myself from being out. There could be somebody out there that Matt Rule's on the phone with, even though you're not supposed to be, and he's going to be in the portal in January, and he wants to come to Nebraska for all we know.
Oh, there are intermediaries. Doesn't have to be direct tampering.
Save yourself the pain, though, Husker Nation.
Sure.
Hold,
it'll be all right. We'll know more tomorrow. Matt Rule tomorrow. Mike Babcock tomorrow. Evan Bland tomorrow. Talk to you at 4.